Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then we're available on demand. And we are available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same models of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ plus community. Our mission? Support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ plus community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbians, and queer women, trans, student youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS healthcare, business, social justice, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader communities.
Well, let's welcome anchor FayWhat. She's a radio and television personality and is the host of the FayWhat Show, the first LGBTQ plus morning program, Mondays at 9 a.m., and then on demand on all streaming and social media platforms. She's also a hostess and MC for many South Florida events. Welcome, Faye.
Hello, boys. Happy to be here. And today, in the gay agenda, Lesbian Night and Burlesque Show at Hamburger Mary's, July 28th. Hamburger Mary's Wilton Manors is currently the only bar in South Florida catering to the lesbian community on a consistent basis. To keep the fun going, they're holding their next Lesbian Night and Burlesque Show by Les Chic at Hamburger Mary's on July 28th. Every last Friday of the month, some of the baddest gems in town gather to have fun at Hamburger Mary's Wilton Manors. The show features fire and pole performances, unique themes, an after party, and all the lesbians of South Florida. The show starts at 10 p.m. Book your reservation while you can. You can visit hamburgermarys.com for more details.
Let's welcome John Hayden, a journalist for 28 years. He now works for several outlets, including Out South Florida, as the senior reporter and community editor. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much, Al. And in the gay agenda, Stonewall Women's Fund, I've Got the Music in Me, July 28th. Stonewall National Museum, Archive, and Library is hosting a night celebrating women and music. The celebration is called I've Got the Music in Me and will be held Friday, July 28th at the Art Serve building in Fort Lauderdale. Hilarious local comic Natalie Tyler will host an evening which features music by Uniquely Different, DJ Lydia, Robin Fear, and drum solo. There will also be spoken word poetry by Papaya and Leslie Salas. More information is available at stonewall-museum.org.
Let's welcome anchor Kal Gajraj. Kal is a first-generation Muslim American, an award-winning communications executive and diversity officer, a professor and advisory board member for the University of South Florida's College of Business. Welcome, Kal.
Thank you, Al. In the gay agenda, Jinkx Monsoon, Everything at Stake, July 24th. Two-time RuPaul's Drag Race winner and Broadway breakout star Jinkx Monsoon is ready to present her biggest concert tour to date, with Everything at Stake. Jinkx and her musical Main Squeeze, Major Skills, are touring North America for the first time ever. She will perform The Ginger Snapped and new songs from her upcoming 3-part album, The Virgo Odyssey. Jinkx Monsoon, Everything at Stake, is coming to town July 24th and is open to 18 plus only. The event will start at 8 p.m. at the Coral Springs Center for the Arts. More details about this event and tickets will be available at thecentercs.com.
Let's welcome anchor Scott Galvin. Some of his achievements include being the executive director of Safe Schools South Florida, a member of the North Miami City Council, and the longest-serving LGBTQ+ legislator in the state of Florida. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be here. I can't wait to see Jinkx's big opening. Next, the gay agenda. Celebrate Orgullo presents God's Gala, October the 13th. Unity Coalition Unidad Celebrate Orgullo is Miami's premier Latin and Indigenous pride, and they present the God's Gala and Legends Honors Award, a formal affair in North Miami Beach. The event will be held in the ancient Spanish monastery. You got to check that place out if you've never been there before. And the monastery is the oldest building in the Western Hemisphere. This will be the coalition's 13th annual God Gala. It's the perfect place to enjoy premium open bar, hors d'oeuvres, international DJ, dance, musical performance, and an incredible fashion show by Bo Kashmarana. More information and tickets are available at celebrateorgullo.com.
Greater Fort Lauderdale welcomes visitors of all abilities to enjoy 31 vibrant communities and works to remove barriers to provide a quality experience for all, including people with visible and invisible disabilities. Accessible tourism is not only about human rights, but also an opportunity to educate and embrace all visitors. This is something Greater Fort Lauderdale does well. We embrace all visitors with wide open, welcoming arms. Visit Lauderdale, everyone under the sun. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Wednesday, July 19th. First, let's queer up politics. House Republicans' new bill could mean no pride flags at the Stonewall National Monument. Pride flags could not be flown at any facilities operated by the Interior Department or EPA, including the 424 sites owned by the National Park Service. Under a spending bill by House Republicans that is set for a committee vote on Wednesday, the bill, which also calls for deep spending cuts for the agencies, would only allow official flags, including U.S. flags, POW/MIA flags, and those that represent a state, tribe, or agency. The measure cleared a subcommittee on voice vote last week and now heads to a full House Appropriations Committee. While the rider does not specifically mention pride flags, Maine Representative Shelley Pingree, the top Democrat on the House Interior and Environment Appropriations Subcommittee, said, quote, "It's clear that the intent of this language is to halt the celebration for LGBTQ+ Americans," end quote. If approved by the full Congress, the bill could force Stonewall National Monument, a National Park Service site in New York dedicated to telling the story of the gay rights movement, to take down its pride flags. The bill is just the latest in a string of attacks on the pride flag and a Republican focus on LGBTQ+ issues in Congress and state houses across the country this year. Well, it's just an indication that Forrest Gump was right. Stupid is as stupid does. This makes absolutely no sense. None. First, it doesn't make any sense because there's no chance of this passing Congress. No chance at all. With the majority in the Senate, there's no possibility that this legislation would pass. It can only potentially pass by perhaps a few votes in the House, and probably not even that. So what they're doing is they're grandstanding for their conservative base. They literally have a hard-on for the gay people. Literally, that's what we're watching. There's no chance, and it's an indication of the radical craziness of the radical conservative and the radical evangelicals against LGBT. And I, from now until next November, I'm going to call this ridiculousness and stupidness out at every turn.
Because it is stupid and ridiculous. You know, and how many times do I tell you folks that we don't own the rainbow, right? Okay, well, now we own the rainbow. It's our official flag. Like, how is it that we could not flag this, raise this? This is incredible. And, you know, these flags have also been vandalized a couple of times. We did a couple of stories on that recently, you know. And then they say it's tax cuts or it's less money spending. Please, this is ridiculous. And I agree with Al 100%.
You know, I disagree with you on one point. I think this will possibly clear the House because the amendment will probably make it onto a greater bill that they will vote out. It won't clear the Senate. It won't clear the joint committee, but I wouldn't be surprised if it passed the House. They've passed a whole bunch of hateful amendments towards women's health and everything else this last couple of weeks to sort of satisfy the base who will hold them accountable next November. They tried this in Florida this session. By the way, they tried to, it was basically the same language. It doesn't call out pride flags, but it basically says that it did. It was pulled by the Republican supermajority because their legal counsel said this is unconstitutional. The Republican legal counsel, whose job it is to find a way to thread that needle and get things like this passed, even they said, no, this isn't constitutional. But it does provide a window to, just because we can sit here safe and say, no, this isn't going to happen, it would never pass the Senate. They're broadcasting what they'll do when they have all three branches of the government. They're broadcasting it. When someone tells you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
Right. They're testing the market. They're throwing the idea out there. They're seeing how far they can push it. And then they're measuring what blowback they get and at what point. So it's just all part of a test.
And it's like the quote from Mean Girls, why are you so obsessed with us? You know? That's the first thing that I always think about. And, you know, shame on Republicans and conservatives for, you know, portraying this hatred towards the LGBTQ plus community because they know one of us. You know, every single conservative out there knows someone who's a relative or a friend that's part of this LGBTQ plus community, and they're part of this hatred.
One last thought, of which we haven't yet commented on. Even if for no other reason, they can't pass this legislation, and this shouldn't pass, because the National Monument and Stonewall National Monument elevates that monument for our community and the nation as a whole in recognition to what the Stonewall National Monument represents to our community. To say that you cannot fly a rainbow flag at this national monument literally is just, it's beyond sad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now let's queer up out South Florida. Bigger budgets and delayed development in Wilton Manors. In this week's Out South Florida, I look at growth, or the lack of it, in Wilton Manors. Lack of a hotel in the island city has been a discussion point for years, and now we have a vision of what one may look like. Developers bought the lot of the old funeral home on Dixie Highway just south of 5 Points. They laid out their vision in a community meeting and took questions. The developer told me he's working with local artists and designers and made a point to make sure the hotel reflects Wilton's LGBTQ plus heritage. A good start. But don't look for a grand opening anytime soon. They haven't even formally started the permit process. Other major projects are stalled at best. Alibi Plaza redevelopment isn't scheduled for further discussion. The Holy Mackerel lot on 26th Street is dead for now, and the lot across the street, where the church was, is up for rezoning. Meanwhile, the city's budget is expected to hit $52 million in the next fiscal year. The budget is very detailed, but headline eye-grabbing numbers are very familiar to South Florida families, including double-digit increases in healthcare and property insurance. At the same time, there seems to be support for lowering property taxes in the city. Wilton Manors is at a crossroads. How it deals with growth now will impact the city for decades and could be a model for how LGBTQ plus neighborhoods survive going forward. And, you know, I think anyone who's lived in this area for more than 10 years knows that developments on a lot of these sites have been fits and starts. You know, here we are, okay, maybe not. And Wilton Manors wants something but they don't want just anything. And finding that support, they rewrote the city code and zoning a couple, 3 years ago to make it easier to get projects like this done. But it's a long process. Not only does planning and zoning have to sign off, the city has to sign off, and there are also federal requirements, EPA and things like that. And of course, Broward County has their own set of building codes. So it's a long process, but
so you're saying
it's just a lot to go through.
Are you saying years? Years. Like
it can take a year just before we're even ready to break ground on any one of these projects.
Right.
Wow. Is this going to take away like the hominess that Wilton has right now?
It very well could. 8 stories on the heart of Wilton Drive. That's the most controversial one right now, because that does set a precedent. They say it's not going to become a canyon with, mid-rise buildings all around, but it's a slippery slope. The ones on 26th Street, I don't think people would be as bothered by, because 26th Street isn't really the heart of our community, but the one on Wilton Drive is creating a lot of consternation.
And was the commission meeting full of people?
No.
That's surprising.
No, but it's a process. The budgeting process, there's still 3 more public meetings. You can read more about them, those dates are in my article on outsouthflorida.com.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
but can Wilton survive without this type of redevelopment? I mean, how long could it stay homey? How many vape shops can we have? How many Thai restaurants can we have on the Strip? But, there's no hotel. Do we need that type of economic development? The number of jobs it's going to bring in, the number of events that's going to happen, at these places. Has anyone ever thought about that perspective?
I've talked with a couple people who are very intimately involved in the budgeting process. And yeah, we can absorb these hits for now because property values are going up. But the fact is, we can't keep the budget growing and keep this level of services up if we don't have some fresh revenue on the horizon. And right now, we're stuck at everything that's basically there. Yeah, there's some duplexes here and there and stuff like that, but major developments,
Scott,
that's where we're going to get the money.
Let's take advantage. You're a city commissioner in North Miami, longest serving LGBT politician, political leader in the state of Florida. If you were sitting in Wilton Manors, you're not, I understand, but if you were sitting in Wilton Manors, what would your observation be in terms of what you're talking to community residents? What do you think about what's going on in Wilton?
First off, I hope their budget includes a lot more money for police protection for the Stonewall parade when it comes along, because the last two years they've had all this brouhaha that, we need to charge money so that people get, because we don't have enough for security. They better have a much beefed up Pride Parade budget in place. Residents who come to meetings and who speak out on things like that generally don't like development. But in my position, I always say to them, okay, well then how much do you want me to raise your taxes? Well, I don't want you to raise my taxes either. Well, they lose sight. Everybody just looks at development as evil, and there can be a point at which there's too much of it. But the police officers you have on the street, their gasoline isn't getting cheaper. Their salaries aren't going down. They're not even staying stagnant. Just to keep the things that you already have, your libraries, etc., you've got to raise prices to keep up with with the cost
and growth,
of inflation.
especially a small community like Wilton Manors, so growth is the offset versus taxes.
That's the only thing you have. So if somebody has to pay that bill, do you want to pay it out of your pocket, taxpayer, or do you want a developer to bring us more money? And then they sort of go, oh, okay, well, developer should be bringing us more money because I personally don't want to pay that.
It's an interesting observation because John's story in South Florida is kind of the good news and the bad news. The bad news is the risk is gentrification of our community. That's Faye's point, or any of our points in terms of, well, we lose the nature of the uniqueness of Wilton Manors, especially its LGBTQ nature. So that has to be balanced very carefully. I will just tell you selfishly, for me, it's really good news. I've already put in for a transfer. Now, I work here in the studios here at Sunshine Cathedral on the campus, but I've already put in a transfer because the offices of Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out are right next door to this new hotel that will go in, that on the top floor has a fabulous pool and bar and food space.
There you go.
So I'm moving my desk over to...
I don't think you should. Next, let's queer up trans rights. Transgender YMCA members speak out after smear campaign from teen.
16-year-old Abigail Wheeler was not comfortable with the YMCA's policies that allow trans people to use the locker room that matches their gender identity. The controversy has gotten national attention as dozens joined Wheeler and her family at a rally in Springfield. She said she was uncomfortable with a trans woman using the same locker room as her and her teammates on the YMCA swim team in Springfield.
It's not whether a biological male is naked, whether a biological male is leering, whether a biological male has a camera out. It's the fact that there's a biological male in the girls' locker room.
New details have come up in the controversy over the Springfield, Illinois YMCA. 16-year-old Abigail Wheeler accuses the YMCA of kicking her off the swim team after she complained the man was undressing in the women's locker room. Candace Klopfelter and Kirsten Newton said they are the two women who Abigail Wheeler alleges were men and in the female locker room. They said they were sitting and talking on a bench in the YMCA locker room when Wheeler allegedly entered. Klopfelter said they were sitting in the locker room already dressed to go for a swim. They used closed-door restrooms for this, as they always do. Abigail then approached them, saying they were sitting in the girls' locker room, to which the duo said, quote, "Well, yeah, we know. We're two women ready to go swimming," end quote. Abigail then disappeared back around the locker. That was their last encounter with her before she started up with the press conferences 3 months later. Klopfelter and Newton said they have been members of the YMCA for years. They go twice a week to swim and work out and think the YMCA handled it perfectly. The YMCA denies any incident of a man undressing in the female locker room. Oh, the Karens are getting younger and younger, aren't they?
You take the words right out of
right,
my mouth.
Scott? Like, geez, come on, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I'm surprised that we don't see more of these stupid-ass stories, right? And the stupid parents that support young Karens, like, yeah, let's go have a press conference, you know? Yeah. At that moment, if you thought that there was someone in your dressing room that shouldn't have been there, wouldn't you go to someone, an elder or someone working there, and say what's going on? No, instead you shut up and then you go and have a press conference 3 months later. You're a freaking coward, Miss Karen. That's what you are.
Mm-hmm. And where are they learning this erasure behavior? They're learning it at home,
mm-hmm. and in Tallahassee,
and in Tallahassee, mm-hmm. and in their churches. Let's be honest. You know, they teach this kind of activism against the community. So, you know, she's going to go on to college and major in Karenism. And there are colleges that turn out people like this. This is not organic.
Oral Roberts University.
It is, and Liberty University. Yeah, this is not organic behavior. Yeah. She learned this somewhere, and it's a short line to draw.
Okay, and stop going to the YMCA. How about you go somewhere else to work at, Miss Karen? If you got that kind of money, go to LA Fitness. What you waiting for? go to Orange Theory. It's only like $300 a month. Go there.
Or Equinox.
Or Equinox. That's another $300.
But they're all pro-LGBTQ anyway, so she's not going to be happy there.
But it wasn't an issue until after she was kicked off of the team. Right? So, you know, if she wasn't a sore loser about it, you know, her parents probably perpetrated this whole thing after she went home, and she was upset about getting kicked off of the team. And 3 months later, here we are at a press conference.
Here's the positive news in the story. YMCA. Congratulations for standing up for what is right. They've been long-term members. The YMCA has been very embracing of LGBT across the country. They love the Village People. And at the end of the day, the YMCA administers fairly and in a judicious way that is acceptable for everyone. And you're not going to please everyone, especially those that want to respond in the way that they did. And I think in every report that I have read, the YMCA has done an excellent job, and we congratulate you for it.
Next, let's queer up politics. DeSantis' anti-woke military plan includes removing transgender protections and vaccine mandates.
Press secretary for the DeSantis campaign posted the governor's plan to target social and political agendas. The campaign's rapid response account also teased today's announcement in a new ad. Take a listen.
As somebody that really appreciated wearing the uniform, really appreciated serving alongside patriots, being a part of a mission greater than yourself. You look at today's military, it's going woke.
Shut up and be proud of Admiral Rachel.
I want to understand white rage.
You are pursuing a social agenda in the military rather than having your eye on the ball. So as president and commander-in-chief on day one, we rip it all out of the military. All the Obama-Biden nonsense is gone, and we're restoring it.
Governor Ron DeSantis vowed Tuesday to roll back military policies supportive of transgender individuals and reinstate with back pay any service members forced out for vaccinated against COVID-19. DeSantis indicated he would return to how the military approached transgender individuals during former President Donald Trump's time in office. Trump largely prohibited transgender military personnel from serving openly, which had been allowed before he became president. President Joe Biden reversed Trump's transgender military ban, issuing an executive order barring service members from being kicked out because of their gender identity. Under Biden, military personnel have also been given access to medical treatments for gender transition. Panama City resident Emily Gray, a transgender former Air Force member who transitioned after leaving the military, said DeSantis' plan would harm the military's mission and potentially ruin people's lives. Gray said that removing transgender people from the military would deprive the services of committed and experienced personnel. Florida Democratic Party Chair Nikki Fried also criticized DeSantis' plans for the military. She said that DeSantis' obsession with fabricated culture wars has made him the boy who cried woke. Even diehard conservative voters are fed up with this. I think it's a huge slap in the face for our LGBT, especially the T, servicemen and women who have served this country to be treated this way. I've never served in the military, and I think it's really brave for these men and women who have served for this country and being able to represent us, and for them to be treated like this afterwards. I think it's really despicable.
You would look very handsome in a uniform.
Thank you.
I just want to say that. Doesn't this take us back to like don't ask, don't tell, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we're catapulted right back a million years ago. Like if all the stands and all the steps forward that we have taken, we're going all the way back all across the board. That's exactly what he wants. Yeah. So you're going to have unvaccinated people in the military, and you're also not going to allow people to be their true, authentic self. These are people who would give their lives for this country.
For this country, yeah.
And that's how they're treated.
And let's remember, service people get vaccines at the start of their enlistment and depending on where they're deployed. And they don't get a thumbs up or thumbs down for it. If you're going to certain regions in Africa, you're going to get vaccinated against diseases there. This is just unnecessary hate. And who's still fighting the COVID battle? I mean, seriously, man.
DeSantis.
And the trans and the attack on trans is just unnecessary hate. Yeah. That's just all it is. And it reminds us, and I don't know if you've ever said this before, Al, so I'll say it for you. Elections matter. Hi! No, because this isn't a case in point. President Obama was fine with it. Donald Trump reversed it. Joe Biden put it back in. Rights are literally on the ballot, and they don't have to go through Congress. These are executive orders with one stroke of a pen. So elections really do matter. Stand up for our LGBT. We did this. Remember when President Truman did social engineering back in the late 40s?
That was you were there?
You were there, Al?
You were there?
That wasn't where I was going. But when he integrated the military by executive order, and the U.S. was going to collapse and the Soviets were going to win. And you know what? Soviets lost, America thrived because we're inclusive when we want to be.
Well, next, let's queer up politics. House Democrats moved to censure openly gay Republican Representative George Santos. A group of Democratic House members announced on Monday that they plan to introduce a resolution to formally censure Representative George Santos, the indicted New York Republican who has been caught in a wide array of lies about his upbringing, resume, and family, and faces multiple charges of money laundering and fraud. The censure resolution, the strictest punishment Congress can hand down aside from expulsion, is being led by Representative Richie Torres. The House Ethics Committee has yet to release its report on Santos after House Republicans referred an expulsion resolution against him to the committee in May. Representative Nick LaLota, one of the New York Republicans who wanted Santos to resign, said at the time they expected the House Ethics Committee to issue a report a couple of months later. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said in May that he hoped the Ethics Committee would move quickly in response to the censure resolution. He thinks that Democrats should allow the Ethics Committee to carry out its process. Because Democrats are in the minority in the House, they do not control what legislation makes it to the House floor. However, any member can force a vote on censure resolution over the House majority's objections.
The breadth and depth of his deception is so staggering that it cries out for congressional punishment. And a public censure is the least that we can do to hold George Santos accountable.
I think it's super interesting that for once there's some Republican support for something like this. You often see all the stories about DeSantis and you say, well, is there no low? Is there no bottom to the barrel? For the Republicans, it seems like there might be, at least, because even Republicans in Congress have been saying he should resign. Even voters in his own district aren't supporting Santos. So I think it's interesting. I'm not championing that we've turned some sort of page and some accountability, but it's quite interesting to me.
I'm so sick. I'm so sick of George Santos. I'm just so sick. In Spanish, me la tiene pelada, okay? You find out what that means, okay? I need for him to shut up, stop lying, stop being gay, and stop being brown, okay? Because you are marking two boxes that I am, and it makes me sad every time I see your face.
He is, I'm sure he's the bottom of the barrel on many more things than that. But the fact is that the Republicans are slow walking this. McCarthy can say he wants this done swiftly, but the fact is they've got a 5-vote majority. If he gets expelled, it's probably going to go down to 4 votes because a Republican will take, or a Democrat will take that seat back. They're going to probably lose a seat in Alabama in the next cycle. That really only gives them 3 seats to play with as they go forward. So as much as they may hate him because he's gay and a liar and pants on fire liar, they need his vote, because the first vote he takes every session is who's going to be speaker, which party will get to have their speaker, and they need that vote badly.
That's another.
And Republicans don't care about Santos. They let him get away with what he's getting away with because it's a vote. It's a vote on their side. This is a numbers game, but I can't believe he's been able to get away with what he's been able to say and do over the years. I mean, he's even inspired a character on SNL. Like, how bad do you have to be?
Yeah.
It's not going to be popular, but Congressman Torres is wrong. And Congressman Torres is wrong to call for the Democratic, basically contingent in the House to censure him. Every single thing, I agree with every single thing that's been said except its conclusion. Because we have watched the Republicans do the exact same thing over and over and over again, and we have criticized them every step of the way. When someone in Arizona said that the election was not fraudulent in Arizona, the Republicans in Arizona censured the representative of Phoenix and I believe Mesa County in action. And the Republicans have done this repeatedly all over the country in censuring against anything that stood up for Joe Biden, for the election, etc. I don't see any difference here. Santos is despicable. Okay, that's absolutely clear. But the idea that the Democrats, without waiting for the Ethics Committee to make a decision and to call for censure of him before the completion of the reasonable process, it's been a couple of months, of the reasonable process of the projection of whatever Chairman or the House Speaker McCarthy thinks is a reasonable speed. Absolutely, I agree with John's point that they're slow walking it, but at the end of the day, the procedure is in place and we should follow the procedure. And Representative Torres is demanding, like a little spoiled child, that we're going to censor him, which will have no impact at all. That's true. None. Mm-hmm. And also, the House has already made a decision on Santos. They voted. While there may be some Republican votes, not enough to remove him, because they tried to do that, and the majority would not act on Santos. at the end of the day, the conclusion is the conclusion. As much as we don't like it, it is the conclusion. We should follow the process, we should accept the process, and we should wag our fingers at the Republicans for doing exactly what the Democrats now want to do, which is exactly the same thing. And it's wrong on both sides, including our side, in my opinion.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
Well, we finished tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News.
In LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News, let's queer up hotspots. What's hot in South Florida this week? Hotspot's new issue will be on stands this Sunday, and the new issue is full of details on the upcoming exciting events that will take place in South Florida. These are events that you won't want to miss, such as on Friday, the 21st, when RuPaul's Drag Race star Maddie Morphosis performs at Hamburger Mary's with 2 shows at 8 and 10 p.m. On Saturday, the 22nd, the Bears of South Florida have a movie day to watch. Barbie, of course, at AMC Coral Ridge at 1 p.m. and attend a meetup at Rosie's at 4 p.m. following the movie. There's a Summertime Madness fundraiser for the Smart Ride at Mad Hatter's Sunday, July 23rd, featuring raffles, jello shots, the patio bar, and a silent auction. Also, a Storks artist feature on Joe Silva starting Sunday and running through August 20th. Grab the new issue on Thursday for full details on those events and many more.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up gay culture. Get a sneak peek of the interview of Jessica Clark on hosting Coming Out for Love. I can't get away in talking to you without talking about arguably one of my favorite shows of my entire life. And of course, that was True Blood. You, of course, were Lilith, the mother of all vampires. Now, in that season where that storyline developed, tell me about that experience in True Blood.
I was actually a huge fan of True Blood before I was cast, very, very much so, for all the reasons that you say, and just, you know, the allegory of like the different supernatural people representing different marginalized communities and the prejudices that we go up against. And obviously Alan Ball is a genius, Angela Robinson. There was just like legitimate LGBTQ content, but also in appealed to just everybody and had these amazing messages that you just sort of absorbed subliminally because the stories were so good and the characters were so fabulous. So I was a huge fan. I continue to be a huge fan. My first day on set was funny because, you know, everyone's like great and they're coming up and introducing themselves and I'm like, I know who you are. I know who you are. Like inside, I obviously wasn't doing that when I'm like, I played it very cool.
Out actress and activist Jessica Clark has worked in many popular movies and series. She has depicted a diverse slate of characters in her film and television career, including La La Land, Bravo's Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, and in the first queer woman-led Christmas movie, Season of Love, among many others. A favorite of mine is Lilith, the Queen of the Vampires, in HBO's True Blood. Well, she is back bearing gifts for the LGBTQ plus community as she hosts the Coming Out for Love dating show. It is the first lesbian dating competition show in the United States, and you'll be able to watch the entire interview on Unapologetically Queer.
That's today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and of course, Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat, John Hayden, Kal Gajraj, and Scott Galvin. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you
good night.
Buenas noches.